Hello, hello. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write, where I give questionable writing advice through running metaphors. Welcome to Season 6 of Running to Write. These are my thoughts on 5 recent indie books I've read, and there's a good mix of authors I know and those whose works I picked up at local conferences. So that does mean I have some inherent biases. But I will do my best to convey my thoughts on each of these novels and recognize their flaws. And I'm a little bit flustered tonight. Sorry, I tried to do a last minute fun edition wherein we now have a lovely slideshow to present. And I decided to do that as of 5 minutes ago and was having some trouble finding all the images I needed. So a little bit scrambled tonight, a little bit last minute, but I think it's worth it. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining in. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Felicia. Thank you for Jordan. Thank you, let's see, RC Scott. And thank you, Adriana. Oh, and cool. Thank you, Cool Gamer, for being here. Yes, I do. Well, I recognize that it's cold outside, whether or not I acknowledge that or let it dictate my clothing. You know, I'm out here in a sweatshirt, which, fun fact on the sweatshirt, I'll go into that in just 1 minute, but I was also walking my dog in shorts tonight. So, fun times. Also, this morning when I went for my run, I was in sweatpants. I had my gloves on and I had my my warm headband. So, yeah, it's getting cold and I am recognizing it. Hey, thank you, Writing Sisters, for coming in and joining. Yeah, it is getting colder. Let's see. So, Lauren, let's see. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Jordan. Yeah. Running is pretty amazing too. Hey, Nicole, Blind Sisters, thank you for joining in too. It's not too bad right now. I guess it was about freezing when I went from a run. When it drops down to single digits, that's when it starts getting rough. Anyways, before we get on to tonight's topic, the 5 books that I'm going to go through, I want to show off my sweatshirt. Now, I mentioned this last week as well, but this comes from Book and Lane, brought to us by Just Eva, who is a huge supporter of this channel. So I want to try and give back a little bit through there. And even though I'm giving back, I'm also technically getting something. Either way, Book and Lane helps others find indie authors. There's a list of indie authors there. I'm on there, which is pretty cool. There's a whole bunch of other indie authors who are on there as well. So it provides a list of us and shows some of our works. And I'm also an affiliate of Book and Lane. So if you want to pick up a gift for yourself or an indie author in your life, then check out the Book and Lane shop. You can see right here, I'm going to pull this away so my sound will go, but Imposter Syndrome is sus. There we go. Now, if you do want to pick up this or other indie author swag, it's a perfect holiday gift that's coming up. Whatever you celebrate, we're entering the gift giving season. So there are indie authors in your lives, or you could just pick it up for yourself, like I did for me. And if you do go there, you can use my affiliate code. It's Ben10, capital B, lowercase en, the number 10, 3 letters, 2 numbers. So Ben10, and I'll receive a little kickback. If you don't and just want to buy some sweet writer swag, I won't mind that either. Either way, we got to support indie authors and or side hustles, which is what we're doing with Just Eva's Book and Lane and the shop that she just opened up there, which is really, really cool. And I, again, like to support whether or not I'm an affiliate. So the whole thing is new to me and I'm learning to just kind of run with it. Now on to tonight's indie book reads. To give some background, I started the Indie Author Showcase series to help alleviate the negative stigma associated with self-published books. Self-publishing is a monumental effort, and the last thing an indie author deserves is prejudiced opinions about the quality of our work. Oh, cool. Hey, JR, thanks for coming to say hi. And yes, I do absolutely wait all year for this weather. 30s is starting to get a little bit cold, but I have nothing against that. I spend most of the summer complaining about how hot it is and how many layers I take off basically when I start my run. And now that I'm actually starting to put on layers and keep them on throughout the entire duration of a run, yeah, it's starting to get a lot more enjoyable. Now, hey, Lori, thank you for joining in. In fact, since you are here, well, not since you're here, but that's the order of things. So tonight's indie book reads, we are starting off with slides, because we're classy here. Also, Locally Love by our own Lori Thorn, who's in the chat right now, which is really cool. And I'll be bookending tonight's books with a holiday theme, if you consider the holidays coming up with the holidays that just passed. So we just got through Halloween. Book number 5 is kind of a horror related. It's not specifically Halloween-y, but it came out. I think it came out on Halloween. Either that or it came out like the eve of Halloween. Either way, that author, R.C. Scott, is in the chat, and he can correct me on when he published. But right now we're focusing on Locally Love by Lori Thorn, who is also in the chat. And it's a wonderful romance story for the Mariah Carey on the radio season, whatever you may or may not celebrate. And I interviewed Lori here a few weeks back. That was on the eve of that book being published, which was really cool to sort of share or bring that story to you all and interview the author while I was at it. Now, Locally Love is a romance story wherein Sam is trying to propose to his girlfriend Hazel, and there's a lot of hijinks that get in the way. The couple are very cutesy. They have some nerdy rapport, which had me laughing at parts. And I approve of running scenes in any book. We were just talking about how I love running, and there is a race that takes part, and there's a lot of nervous excitement that the characters experience that comes through wonderfully in the writing that Lori conveys. It's obvious that she is a runner. It's obvious she's participated in a lot of races, and she wrote that into the story really, really well, especially the I'll call it the moment after the race where they start gorging on food. And that felt like moments plucked directly from my life. I have absolutely come back from a long run and just inhaled everything that was around. I wouldn't even I would just open up bags of potato chips, start shoving food in there. When I was doing a long run after Halloween, there was just candy lying around. I went through half of the stash before I even realized, maybe that's a lot of sugar. And anyways, Locally Love, there's a lot of multiple spicy scenes, and the spice level I would say is moderate. They're highly descriptive and evocative. There are terms in there which I did not recognize, and I wouldn't define this as an overly indulgent erotic novella. That being said, it isn't for those who exclusively like closed door sex scenes. There are some juicy bits in there. There's also a few warm-up moments as the group of friends discuss sex and a book that they're reading. So it's kind of cool how they have a book club within the book that's discussing a sexy Christmas time Santa-themed book within a book that is itself a romantically somewhat sexy time involved holiday romance that also circles around Christmas. So if you can handle those conversations within the book club, within the story, then the actual spicy scenes feel reasonable extensions. Throughout the story, character conversations felt real, and I'm fairly certain my friends and I have had these exact same conversations before. That's definitely a plus for me in terms of any story, the fact that it's believable. Now, more than that, the relationship between Sam and Hazel is healthy. There are definitely miscommunications that goes with any romance story, but nothing in there that should be a deal breaker. Now, I'm going to compare it to other romance stories, which I've read, where I'm going to talk about my pet peeves in that some of the relationships, some of the actions that people in those romance stories, not Locally Love, but in those romance stories they take, those should be red flags. And instead they're treated as quirks or, oh, that's such a sweet moment for him to go completely over the top and stalk me. And that's easily What's actually happening gets easily overlooked when the characters declare their love for each other. Now, going back to Locally Love, the adorable relationship between Sam and Hazel feels like it could last beyond the last page of the book. And that, in my mind, is the greatest success of a romance story. So I'm going to check in on chat and see how you all are. See how you all are doing. Go. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah. Richard, that is actually a Sean Connery. I don't remember which one it was, but it was one of the Bond movies where he said that exact line. And yes, um, I'm in fact a garbage can when it comes to food. I'm not as bad as some of my friends. One of my friends, Chad, is actually known as the garbage can because he just eats everything, and usually everybody else's plates. But yeah, I my diet plan is Kirby-esque. So the Nintendo character Kirby, who just is a pink ball that inhales everything and absorbs the abilities of the people that he sucks in. Yeah, that is how I consider my diet plan. And thank you, Nia Vixen of Fiction, for coming in. For those of you who also follow me on other channels, we are doing Scripting the Book this Sunday at noon. Let me check my calendar. I believe that is accurate. Yeah, this Sunday at noon. Perfect. I was right. And it's going to be about the Wild, the Wild, which is a woman's walking and life affirming trip along the PST, the Pacific Trail. It's basically the West Coast version of the Appalachian Trail, which those of these East Coasters might be aware of. It also, the script in the book part of it, or the comparison part, comes from a movie by the same title starring Reese Witherspoon, which I haven't watched yet. I will watch this week. So I am excited to talk about my thoughts on the book therein. Whew. Lots of things going on. Can I share Lori's channel? Lori, you don't have a channel, but you do have a podcast on Spotify. You know what? I will stall for time and let's see if I can get there as quickly as possible. So Spotify, it's called Rebels. What is it? It's Allied. Let's see here. Is it Page Rebels? There we go. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. So it's the Page Rebels by Lori Thorn. You are two episodes in. I watched last week's episode. I haven't watched tonight's, which came out. Oh, it came out today. So I'm perfectly fine there. And in the first one, you did the Love MD with the romance author Devin Atwood. And the one I haven't watched yet is Old Man Drinks with Photography book by author Heather Balsarek. Hopefully I pronounced that okay. And for Lori Thorne's Page Rebels, there's the link. Also, J.M. Chaley, thank you for joining in. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I missed a lot in chat. Let's see here. Oh, fair enough. Sorry, it was Pierce Brosnan for James Bond with the I thought Christmas only came once a year line from one of the old Bonds. I really thought that was that sounds like something that Sean Connery would say in the movie. But yeah, that's cool. So yeah. In fact, J.M. Chaley is also going to be on Page Rebels. I will be recording it. Oh, I'm recording it tomorrow night, actually. Whew, the week's been slipping by for me. And fair enough. It's The World Is Not Enough, and Denise Richards plays Christmas. Oh, Denise Richards. That is a name I've not thought of in a long time, and I do not miss her acting capabilities or lack thereof. Anyways, back to tonight's episode. Let me try and rein this in a little bit. Sorry, I get sidetracked. So this is really cool. Patrick Thomas is a guy who I met at this year's Balticon. He was a booth buddy right next to me, and him and Patrick Thomas, John Stewart. John French. Patrick Thomas and John French were both booth buddies next to me, and they really helped me walk through what to expect with Balticon. So I really appreciate all that the questions they were able to answer, all of my worries that they helped alleviate, and they helped watch, when I went to the bathroom or whatever, they would help watch my booth and vice versa, or if I would get a snack or whatever. So I really appreciate all the help that Patrick Thomas did for a newbie seller. I mean, that was the first time I was a vendor at a conference. Anyways, one of the books that he does is Murphy's Law, which is Tales from Bulfinche's Pub. And side note on other things that Patrick Thomas has written, it's Cthulhu. Oh, I'm going to draw a blank on it. I don't want to butcher it, so I'm going to do it. So Cthulhu. I'm really sorry about this because I want to get it right. It's basically an ad page. Cthulhu Explains It All. Dear Cthulhu, Cthulhu Collection by Patrick Thomas. And it's basically like a help newspaper article. So people would write into Cthulhu and ask random questions about life, and then he would answer them as Cthulhu. So it's really cool. But back to Murphy's Law. So rambling aside, back to Murphy's Law, drawing it in. This story answers the age-old question of what do you get when you mix Cheers with Percy Jackson and Stir? You get a pub owned by a leprechaun with Demeter as the brewmaster and the bouncer who is Hercules. Together they solve troubles of anyone who walks through the door. Each chapter brings us new characters in a series of short stories that come together to tell something much larger. So basically you have somebody walk into this pub, they find it at the pub is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So somebody's following a rainbow, and outside of the pub is just, for like decoration, it'll say Murphy's, it'll say Bulfinche's Pub, and then there'll be a pot of gold right there above the door. So people following the rainbow see the pot of gold and they're down their luck. They decide to follow it. They go inside. First drink is always free. And then the bartenders or whoever's there listen to people's problems, and they basically kind of solve them. So the larger than life characters guide strangers to be better than they were as they take on all types of the mythical pantheon and human adversaries. From demons to gods to social workers, all sorts of beings challenge the owners of Bulfinche's Pub and the employees there in their efforts to make the world better. In the end, a series of feel-good stories, and on a mostly happy-ish note, it's not necessarily that the characters are better, it's that they learn to work through their troubles. So the very first story is a guy whose wife passes, and then he stumbles into the bar and ends up working there for the rest of the novel. And so it's him kind of coming to terms with the death of his wife. And there's a whole bunch of other similar life-changing and tragic stories. The characters are fun and funny even as they deal with heavy topics. There's loss, homelessness, questions of faith, learning to be comfortable with who you are, and so much more. This book really can be inspiring to people who are down on their luck. And fun fact, if you look for this book on Amazon, there is one copy for the paperback, and that's a used version, which is going for $288. It's not mine, but it does make me think that AI generated prices can really skew the market. So FYI, the most I've seen for falling through is only a measly $30 for a $10 book. So apparently, thanks to you all, there was a run on my paperback copies, and apparently there weren't any around. So the price got jacked up all the way up to 30. I don't think I saw any of that profit, but kudos to Amazon. Anyways, my point being, try out Abe Books or a non-Amazon provider for a reasonable price on Murphy's Law. Number 3, or actually, let me check out chat, see how things are going. Ooh, good, good, good. Murphy's Law is on your TBR list. Nice. Booth Buddies sounds like a Kevin Smith movie about San Diego Comic-Con presenters. Yeah. Sure. Only if it took place in like a convenience store or a mall or something along those lines. Oh, nice, nice, nice. James Haley already recorded his Rebels episodes. So I will await that eagerly to find out what you had to say. Oh boy. Now, number 3, Broken Wings and Buried Secrets, a short story collection by Bethany Votto. Much like the upcoming Last Century for a Night, this is the second time that the same author has made it onto my indie author showcase. I've reviewed a book by Bethany Votto before. It was Tracker. And I really like how well she writes, Bethany Votaw, I really like how well she writes, but I was fascinated how these short stories feel so different from her other works that I've read, and even how the individual stories within feel so different from each other. Broken Wings and Buried Secrets contains short stories from all forms of life through many different perspectives. And Bethany Votaw captured in these pages some of the worst moments in her characters' lives and how they found the strength to continue. Yeah, so if you can't tell, both the last one, which was a series of short stories, and this one really have to do with a lot of characters who are down on their luck. And there's a lot of true wisdom being told and shared here. The situations for these characters are heartbreaking without dragging me into despair. There's an entire short story dedicated to a resolute cancer patient who makes peace with the end of their life. That could have brought me down and make me want to maybe put the book away until tomorrow or the next day or whatever. But instead, I wanted to read more. While many of the stories were sad, more often than not, they left the characters on a hopeful note. And that is truly inspiring. In one word, this novel is beautiful. Now, moving on to number 4, Yesterday's Dreams by Danielle Akay-McPhail. This is somebody who I wouldn't really say met, but I saw at a conference. I think it was Balticon, might have been MagFest. Can't quite remember. But either way, talked to her very briefly, and I try supporting indie authors at conferences I go to. And this is book 1 of The Eternal Cycle. It's all about how a young adult, so maybe early 20s, she decides to sell her priceless violin to help pay for her father's medical bills and their climbing rent issues. She brings it to a consignment pawn shop run by a woman who happens to be mythical. We don't find out. Well, she doesn't find out until much later in the story. We find out pretty early on, and we do find out, mild spoiler, but the mythical being has strong ties to the main character's family. And what unfolds is a supernatural battle against immense forces based around Irish lore, all while the young adult woman unlocks her inner power through music. And you can kind of see that through the image here. I couldn't find this. It's hard to find on Amazon because you need, like, Yesterday's Dreams. There's a lot that comes up for it. So I pulled this off Goodreads, and it wasn't letting me copy and paste the picture. I was running late to tonight, so I just kind of took a screenshot. So sorry, it's smaller than the other ones, but you can still kind of see that she is playing her violin, and there's magic happening around that. Now, the batch of books, I certainly loved the world that was created, but the story felt, simply put, simple. I wanted there to be more. And breaking this down to its most basic level, the characters spent most of the story running back and forth between 2 locations, namely her home, and the pawn shop. A lot of the scenes, the conversations, the drama felt like I was rereading prior chapters. Now, there's a lot of moments when a fight will break out, and then someone will make a last second save, and then we get a flashback cutaway to explain who that person was, or some other detail about maybe the Irish lore or something that happened within the fight, or some kind of preparation that went in to the fight itself, or who the villain is. And in my opinion, it felt like a heist movie where instead of getting that intelligence and purpose behind learning each character's intentions, we got world building. And I loved the Irish mythology that was presented. It was kind of a new twist on the Duatha de Danann, which a lot of the stories I've read recently, thanks to Shannon S.D. Houston, have that sort of mythology, Irish mythology twist. But whereas in Shannon's story, it was incorporated really well. Here, it was, hey, something's happening, and then here's the Irish mythology, and we're just going to throw it all out there on the page. And it really broke up the pacing in a way which detracted detracted from what the tension that was being built. And also, as this was the first book in the series, I feel like the villain would have been much, much stronger to have been standing on their own rather than showing us or telling us who the person behind the curtains is, who is literally pulling the villain's strings. So there's a lot of like, this character is controlling a whole bunch of other people, but there's somebody behind them. And then instead of just kind of implying it, we find out that person's motivation. And it felt like a lot for a first book, which could have had more action or more magic along to go along with it. And all in all, that felt like there was too much background being told to us for me to really want to sink my teeth into the characters. And that being said, I am a huge fan of Irish lore, and I find everything told about it to be fascinating. I just didn't like how it was cut away during the story. Yeah. And so this was a book I absolutely picked up based on its cover. And there wasn't nearly as much magic violin as I would have liked. I see everyone is kind of drawn to the images. Put the book in a freezer. Oh, cool. Sorry, I'm reading chat and there's a lot going on there. Now, on to the final book of the night. This is The Cyst by R.C. Scott. Now, again, R.C. is right here, and I don't know if I can spoil that. Whatever. Right now, I'm calling him R.C. Scott. He's maybe working on a pen name. We'll see what comes of that. But for right now, The Cyst, you can see right there, it says by R.C. Scott. And based on another one, which kind of accurately depicts what's happening in the story, you can see that there is, well, body horror going on. Now, R.C. Scott writes horror mixed with sexual content, and he delivered in his latest novella. Let's see, there are trigger warnings for graphic sex, gore, and I'm going to spoil it so no one else gets shocked while reading it. Harm to a dog. The Cyst follows a young couple who have returned from a trip to the Amazon. Only one of them was bit by a spider, and she has a cyst growing on her face, which quickly expands from your run-of-the-mill body horror story into something much, much worse for the characters. And R.C. Scott paints vivid and horrifying imagery into his every descriptions, from the setting to how the characters are feeling. There's a great culmination delivering well on the promise of horror as things go from bad to worse to much, much worse. The nonstop pace sucked me in and kept me turning pages until I finished this book in a single afternoon. It was actually this past weekend. So this was a fun COVID read where, well, technically not the weekend. I was off on Thursday, Friday. Fun times. Anyways, as I was recovering from COVID, so you might even say that the cyst cured me of COVID, medically speaking, of course. And I just sat there, started reading, and it was an easily digestible, wonderful story. Don't want to give away anything more, so I'll just leave you with, I enjoyed this book a lot. There's a lot of gruesome details to it, and I kept turning pages to find out exactly how bad things will get. And oh boy, they do. So let me remove this. Those are 5 indie books I've read recently. And recently is a very relative term. But either way, I'm glad I got a chance to share them with you. I am Ben Pick. and thank you for joining me in Running to Write. If you enjoy my indie reviews, please press those like buttons. And better yet, check out these stories on your own if you haven't already. I can see a few people were talking about picking some of these books up, so that is awesome. And let me know in the comments what indie books you're reading. I might get a chance to check them out and review them here in the future in the next Indie Author Showcase number 5 or number 6. Also, for those of you looking for numbers, I counted there was a Balticon indie review that I did. So that's number 4, even though it isn't technically numbers number 4. So we go 1, 2, 3, and then 5. But Balticon counts as 4. So for those of you who are sticklers for numbers, sorry, I Tokyo drifted the scenario. And I post my running and writing progress on Instagram and X as Running to Write. So be sure to follow me and join with your own thoughts. Don't forget to sign up for my Writing to Write monthly newsletter if you want regular updates on my sort of musings, pitfalls, and lessons learned. I sent one out 10 days ago. So you'll get your next one in the 3rd of December. And you'll find out how I spent my Thanksgiving and whether or not I did a turkey trot race. Spoiler alert, I'm not planning on doing one. So I'll just be writing on my own on Thanksgiving. See you next time. Until then, read a book by an indie author. And I will see you all next week. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. You all are awesome and have a wonderful, wonderful